Morning, and thank you, all of you, or afternoon, I should say. Let me start with Leighton first. You wanted Penny Mordaunt. How do you feel on the eve of what will probably be a victory for Liz Truss, with no confirmation yet even of a job for Penny Mordaunt?
Thank you, Alastair, and good afternoon. I did support Penny Mordaunt, and it's been a long campaign, hasn't it? And hopefully, whoever comes the leader of the Conservative Party, we can all unite behind them. So that's probably my view at the moment. I'm looking forward to tomorrow, though.
Yeah, I bet you are. Do you think that whole process has weakened or strengthened the party that you helped run in the country?
I think it's probably weakened the party slightly, not too much. But as soon as tomorrow is announced, I think, what we need to do, unite behind the leader and, start getting out there and sending our messaging, sorting out the cost of living, and all the other big issues that are happening in this country.
And how do you feel about this point that Liz discussed with Laura Kuenssberg this morning, and Tim and I were just chatting about, that her package to help with the cost of living crisis will inevitably help the wealthier more than it will the poor? Does that matter to you?
I didn't see the Laura Kuenssberg interview this morning, so I'll watch that later on. But at this moment in time, it's not, it's not an important issue for myself. So no.
OK, fascinating. And the final point I want to put to you is the same one I've just put to Tim Montgomery as well. And I genuinely don't know whether you were pro-Boris, anti-Boris, but I know, because I've talked to you before, you have your ear very much to the ground. Will the party forgive and forget what happened to Boris Johnson and move on? Or is there still deep feeling held within the Conservative Party on the ground?
Speaking to party members, and obviously we get emails coming in left, right and centre. People still believe that Boris should be still the Prime Minister, and I'm sure some members who didn't like Boris Johnson will probably forgive him, for what he's done. At the moment, I think everyone's just eager for this leadership contest to be over, and for us all to move on as a united party.
Lovely to talk to you again, and thank you for fitting us into your busy Sunday afternoon, and best to you and everybody in Penarth there in Wales. Lovely to catch up with you again. Let's bring Don in at this stage. Don, you told me when we spoke before that you were leaning towards Liz Truss, but thought Rishi was a great performer. How did you finally resolve that dilemma?
I voted for Liz. that was the resolution. Some of the big things, and in our party, in our association, we have a lot of people who support both candidates, who support Liz or support Rishi, and so. And many people who still love Boris. So we've got to come back together and unify. And what got me over the line was particularly things with taxes and growth, business growth, looking to get our business taxes down so we get a lot more investment. We compete with France, we compete with Ireland, we compete with other countries, and we stimulate the economy. And that's very important, a positive look going forward, not being defensive and saying, we have to have a recession or we have to have a big recession. But more important, what's really important is to get business confident, whether small business or business from overseas or large business, get them confident, because our businesses in my part of London are actually hurting, because we have a business club, and in our business club, they spoke about all the effects that the lockdown had on the small businesses, and how they're really making ends meet, barely making ends meet sometimes. If it gets any worse, people, they'll have to lay people off. So we really need to be in a situation that we give businesses a chance to flourish, to more than make ends meet, to grow. And that's what I'm looking forward to.
Have you heard either from her or what she... I mean, it's assumed that if it's her, then it'll be Kwasi Kwarteng, who's a very experienced former business secretary, so he knows how people like you think and work, that the two of them have come up with a plan. She's talked about repeating the reversal of the national insurance, doing direct helps to individuals, even if it means wealthier people get a bit more of it than poorer people. Do you feel, as a Conservative and a small businessman, that this looks viable, that this looks like a winning package?
My father was in insurance all his life. And one thing I realized about insurance is you have it there because things can go very different from how you've planned life and things. So I think it gives it's a good package to give us a good chance to weather the storm and come out well and grow. I'm not going to say that everything's going to be perfect, because I have a crystal ball just around, just behind this computer, and it always has a little bit of fuzziness in it, because the future can't be predicted with absolute certainty. But if you don't do the right things, you're going to get the wrong results. If you do the right things, you're in a much better chance of getting a good result.
Brilliant. Don, great to talk to you. And fingers crossed for you as an individual struggling with the cost of living crisis. But if I may say so, even more importantly, as a small businessman speaking on behalf of yourself and those colleagues that you work with. Really good to catch up with you again. Thank you so much. And finally, they say in the trade, Paul joins me now. Now, Paul, by your own admission, and I'm not being judgmental or cocky at all, but by your own admission as a factory worker, you may not be seen by some nowadays as a typical Tory, let alone an office holder. So, did you stick with Liz Truss, and if so, why?
Well, good afternoon, Alastair. Simply, yes, I did stick with Liz. And why? Because I think she's going to do the best sort of benefit for my constituents I represent on the council. I represent one of the most deprived wards in North Hampshire. And it's those people I care about. Those that are going to be struggling on paying their energy bills. Those who are looking for work. And it's important to make certain we have food banks in my ward, and we shouldn't have food banks. So what she's going to do and offer and convince me to vote for is those benefits, those people who are always forgotten about, the poor. I'm not too worried about if the rich get richer. That's always going to happen. But I'm concerned about those who need the help on paying for the energy bills this year. A sample, I know people are paying now £75 a month for the electricity bill for a one-bedroom flat. So we need to do something. And she convinced me that she's the person to help those who are in the poor group of the country.
The line is a little bit tricky, Paul, but I'm going to stick with it because what you're on to now is absolutely vital. I'm going to come back to you on it because Tim Montgomery was with me at the beginning of the programme and he echoed exactly what you're saying. If the Conservative Party is going to manage to continue appealing to people right across the country, not only behind the Red Wall, but even in lovely Hampshire, where, as you know, I also live, then it's got to be seen to care about poor folk as well as wealthy folk. Do you think that your candidate Liz put her foot in it on the BBC where she said, I don't mind if those tax cuts benefit the rich more than the poor, we've just got to get on with it? Was that sound judgment or a boo-boo?
No, I think it's a truth. If you're earning that £200,000, you're going to get greater back on your national insurance because it's a percentage. And what people forget is that if you're on £10,000 and you take 1%, that's going to always be a smaller amount. So I think she's open and honest about it. And that's what we actually need now, and a united party behind Liz.
A final one, and very, very quickly. You used to be an engineer in the NHS. Do you think other big issues that I mentioned in my intro, like the NHS, like education, will get a look in, or is it just the economy for the first 6 months?
No, I think the NHS and mental health especially will get a good look in.
Brett, Paul, I love people who can genuinely answer a question quickly. Leighton, Don and Paul, all of you delivered exactly what I hoped for. Your reflections on the campaign, your hopes for the future, and stay in touch with us. Let's do it again, maybe in 2 or 3 months' time when we see how whoever does win tomorrow is getting on. But for the time being,